All right, welcome back to Money for Lunch. I cannot believe this is it. We have just a couple more weeks left before the big holiday push, or I should say the big holiday celebration. The big push is on now. 10 days left before Christmas. For some of us, that means 10 days more of shopping. For some of us, it's probably a little bit less, but you know who you are. You're going to wait till the last minute, maybe even Christmas morning, before picking up those final few gifts. It's a very fun time for a lot of us, but it's also a very stressful time for many of us. Suicides rates sometimes go up. Stress definitely goes up. A lot of us get sick with colds and flus. I like to talk about it, or I like to title it, if you will, the holiday overwhelm syndrome. So you think I just coined it, the holiday overwhelm syndrome. And with me is Dr. Steve G. Jones. Dr. Steve G. Jones is one of our regular contributors and is a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist. He has been practicing hypnotherapy since the 1980s. He's the author of 22 books on hypnotherapy. He's a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists, American Board of Hypnotherapy, president of the American Alliance of Hypnotists, on the board of directors of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Lung Association, and director of the California State Registered C.G. Jones School of Hypnotherapy. In order to keep up with the very latest in research and technology, he regularly attends training conferences. Steve G. Jones, welcome back to Money for Lunch.
Well, thanks for having me here, Bert.
I'm always excited to have you on here. It's always fun, and particularly excited to talk about the holiday overwhelm syndrome. A lot of us freak out during the holidays, and I want to talk about first about the theory that a lot of people get depressed around the holidays. They become very despondent, very depressed, and sometimes almost suicidal. Let's talk about this a little bit. What's your take? What causes so many of us to become depressed and despondent during the holidays?
Well, it's kind of like when somebody who's not in a relationship goes to a park and sees all the happy couples together, holding hands and kissing and so forth and sharing. The holidays make all of that front and center for everyone. So it's a time of families, families getting together and reuniting and so forth. And for those who don't have families or don't have those strong connections or feel they don't have those strong connections, it brings that front and center in their minds and they begin to dwell on it.
You know what's interesting? I picked up on one of the things that you said there about they think they don't have those connections. And, one of the things that I learned is that a lot of the stuff that we go through is really at our own hands, right? We assume or we think or we somehow envision that we don't have these connections or that we're not loved or whatever, and it causes these bad feelings, and then we just focus on them, and then we start, and then to add to it, not only do we focus on, things that make us feel bad, but then we start, using words to make us even feel worse.
Oh yeah, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We can undo ourselves pretty quickly if we start going down that path. And so, as a solution, it's really important to focus on what is there, the connections that are there. Most people have some sort of connections, whether it's friends or family or, extended family or maybe even long-lost family that they can get in touch with. So, people may write it off and say, well, I don't care about the holidays and it's just another day and it's a marketing thing to sell presents and so forth. But deep down inside, we are programmed to feel like looking for connections during the holidays, at least in Western civilization. So it is important to make sure that your network is intact and that you feel intact with your network of people.
Absolutely. You know what? And somebody just sent me a Facebook message, and I love this because I think this is going to be very relatable. And so see if you can help us out with this little solution. So the message is, you know what? Every year my mother comes to stay with us for Christmas. And I see myself reverting back to my teenage or younger years. I shamefully snap at her or I end up ignoring her. And just like I did as a child. Sometimes I feel like she's invading my space even though I invited her home. So what do you think about this? I mean, it's very common for us to sometimes, revert back to the, the traditional, parent-child relationship, right? And we kind of sometimes give up our power or whatever. What do you think? Any kind of solution for individuals like this young lady?
Well, this happens because of anchors. And for example, I went back to the home where I grew up to visit my stepmom. My parents have passed away, unfortunately. My stepmom, who was with me since age 10, is still around. And, I go back to the house where I grew up, and instantly I feel like I'm 10 years old again, and I go into the bathroom, and nothing's been updated substantially, so it makes it even more like a time capsule. So I go back to the bathroom I used to use as a kid, and instantly I feel like I'm 10 years old again. I come out and go in the living room, and there's my stepmom, and I feel kind of subservient, like I'm a 10-year-old and I don't know much, and it's just interesting. That's all done by anchors. For me, the bathroom's an anchor, especially the fact that it's preserved the same way. The house itself, the location of the house, all of these things remind me of my childhood. So when we go back to these places from our past, we've got these anchors, and sometimes there are anchors in what people say or how they say them, and we go back to our old patterns of arguing or being despondent or what have you. So they're not always positive anchors. For me, it's wonderful to feel like I'm 10 again. It feels like I have a fresh start again. It feels wonderful. But for a lot of people, especially during the holidays, old wounds come up and so forth. And so without getting into a lot of advanced techniques, I would recommend anyone going through this to look into a practitioner who practices NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to sort of reassign some of those triggers. One of the things you can do by yourself is do your best to make new memories or make new associations. So let's say you're feeling that way that you did with your parents and it's a negative feeling. Well, how about breaking through that and telling a joke or doing anything that would be a positive connection between you and that person, or you and that place, or you and that situation. This is going to go a long way in terms of changing the way that you interact with them when you're together with them.
Yeah, I like this. This whole thing about anchors. Sometimes we're looking for anchors. When there's certain, you mentioned going back to the old house and seeing the old living room and bathroom and things of that nature. That's an anchor, and for you, it's a good anchor. And then a lot of us use, quote, comfort foods, right, as an anchor. During the Christmas, everybody wants to partake of hot chocolate or maybe eggnog, or we sing certain songs or certain smells that anchor us back to the past at better times. And then comfort foods in general are whatever those foods are that kind of make you feel better, give you some comfort, make you feel more love from days gone, days in the past or whatever. So we're using anchors all the time. It's whether or not we're aware of them. Would you say that's correct?
Oh, absolutely. And there are plenty of wonderful anchors, especially during the holidays, and people start to crave those anchors. They want to go back and smell the Christmas tree or see the presents or hear the music, and it's just it's usually a wonderful time of year. And then getting back to what we were talking about earlier, if people don't have that anymore, if they're not connected with their parents anymore for whatever reason, or they're not able to do that, then they're going to miss out on that fix, the yearly fix of those good feelings. So it's yeah, we can focus on the anchors that we do have. Most people, even if they're estranged from their family, or their family is deceased, or they no longer have connection for whatever reason, they can reach out in their community and look for resources such as people getting together who are in a similar situation. Uh, there's usually some kind of community service going on somewhere for the holidays that they can be part of. I don't know any community that doesn't have some sort of religious service for the holidays. So there are things that can be done that aren't quite as good as the love and good feelings you'll have from family, but for someone who's teetering on the edge and not feeling very good about themselves, these kinds of things can actually save lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I want to add to that is also, I think that sometimes these bad dealings, if you will, come from, and not to sound mean, but come from a selfish point of view. People are only thinking about themselves, what they've lost, what they don't have, kind of like what you were saying at the beginning of the segment. They're thinking about me, me, me. Look at poor me. They're having this pity party. But if you get involved in your community, you go to your synagogue, you go to your church, you go to whatever community you want, and if you start serving others, you get out of your head. If you want to feel love, well, go give love to somebody else. I know this is typically we talk about business and marketing, and we talk about what do you call it, other things, but it is the season. So not to get too spiritual here, guys, and freak everybody out, but really comes down to feeling love and giving love. And I think one of the fastest, easiest ways to feel that love is by serving other people. As you get out there, and maybe you get together and you put together some blankets and you pass them out to homeless people, or you give them to less fortunate people in shelters. You get out of your own head is a great way to create new memories, and back to what you're saying, Dr. Jones, create new anchors versus waddling in stuff that isn't doing you any good.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. People who do that kind of thing are, usually happier year round, because you can also volunteer year round. I take someone like Tony Robbins, for example. He's really big on giving back and community service and volunteering and helping the homeless and so forth. Here's someone who's extremely wealthy and extremely successful, a well-respected businessman and coach of thousands of people, if not millions, and he'll get down in the trenches. Just put on regular street clothes and get out there and start serving food to homeless people. This is something that anyone can do, even if you have family connections. You can, during the holidays, you can still take them and teach them that. Just having this attitude of gratitude is very helpful when you're thankful for what you have and you want to give back, and you realize we're all one, we're all in this together, we all need to help each other. Then you really do get in touch with the spirit of the holidays, which is that giving spirit.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the other stressor that a lot of us go through, and that is, keeping up with the Joneses, or buying, you're buying a bunch of stuff that maybe really might be causing you a lot of stress because maybe you don't have the money. I think that sometimes, and this, I'd like to get your opinion on this, I think it comes from a low self-esteem. People who spend money they don't have, really just need to understand that this will pass so quickly, and that you're much better off giving gifts that you can afford versus just, stressing yourself out trying to be the perfect gift giver. What's your take on this?
Oh, absolutely. And usually this comes from a feeling of a power dynamic where it's unequal. For example, if someone feels that they are less powerful than someone and wants the other person to respect them or to love them, they'll often go out of their way to buy a really big gift that they probably shouldn't spend money on. Or even if they can afford it, it's something that's a little bit out of whack in terms of what a quote unquote normal gift should be. People who do this should realize that you really don't gain much by doing this, by stretching yourself and attempting to impress someone with a big gift or show how much you quote unquote love them with a big gift. Usually this continues this weakened power dynamic where you're still in the subservient type position. So anyone attempting to do to buy holiday gifts to impress, I would suggest that you reanalyze that approach. It's really not giving you what you think. And those who feel that they need to step it up and pay more and get people things, some of the nicest gifts that I've had were actual stones from the beach, or these rocks that someone picked up on a trip, or a card that's with a wonderful message inside, or like my stepmom does, she makes her own cards. She hand makes them in what a process called stamping, which I don't quite understand, but apparently you buy a bunch of stamps and you make these cards, and it's a handmade thing. This doesn't cost much. We're maybe talking $5 max for one of these, I would say. And stones, rocks, they're free. A letter, if you write it, it's going to cost whatever the stationery and the pen cost, or the piece of paper. So these are the gifts that really touch people. These are the gifts that are remembered. The big high price gifts, those things aren't perceived as positively as people might think. So I'd look into that, reevaluating the feeling and the thought and the intention behind the gift rather than the price tag.
Yeah, I like that idea. The what do you call it? If you're buying gifts to keep up with the Joneses, or because of this power struggle that Dr. Jones talks about, it's certainly a time for you to reevaluate your gift-giving strategy or reason. I think that for the most part, gifts given during Christmas may last just a few weeks, maybe a few months. As boring as socks and underwear are, they're going to use them, and they're going to think of you every time they use them, and they're going to probably last, 6 months to a year. Everybody has that grandmother who gives you clothes, and as a kid, you're like, oh man, I don't want clothes. But as we get older, clothes are kind of a welcome thing. And so maybe being able to knit something, or again, buy something that is well within your reach, is going to be so much more desirable. Give yourself the gift of little stress and financial abundance, because let me tell you, you're going to feel great after the Christmas holiday to have money in your bank account. You're going to feel so much better, and than if you're broke, because you spent all this time giving everybody the perfect gift. Not to mention, Dr. Jones, when at the end of the Christmas holiday, when you're broke, doesn't that also add resentment and make you feel bad?
Oh yeah, it's some people get in the cycle of sadness during the holidays, and then overspending, then feeling bad, and getting the credit card bills. And a lot of people think that this is just the way life is supposed to be, that you're supposed to overspend during the holidays, and you're supposed to get that shocking credit card bill, and they'll talk about it as if they're upset about it, but they're also participating in this ongoing madness of consumerism, and they're happy about it to some degree because they're sharing sort of a camaraderie. Oh, you got your bill? Yeah, I got my bill. It's sort of like when you hear people say, "Oh, I'm so upset, I really need a drink." Well, these are just things that are programmed that we think we're supposed to do because everyone else is doing them. These are not necessarily quote unquote good or healthy strategies. So I would invite people to reevaluate what you've been trained with, reevaluate the idea that you don't have to do what everyone else is doing. I mean, if you want to live an above average life, then don't do average things. Step out of this rat race and realize that you may very well be caught up in the hypnosis that a lot of people get caught up in.
I love that. And that truly is what's happening. We get hypnotized in several different ways by several different forces. And I think it's also a great way to test out who really loves you. I mean, I think that if this year you decided to be different, have courage, and buy minimal amount of gifts, so it allows you to stay well within your budget, and see if you lose any friends. And I don't believe you will. You're not going to lose any loved ones. I think that anybody who truly loves you is going to understand that you didn't want to get into debt over Christmas, and are going to probably look up to you, and you might be able to, you might be setting a new tradition of a debt-free Christmas, which is really a joyous, is truly joyous all year round. I mean, there's so much power in that. And I like what you said there, Dr. Jones, about just, if you don't want to be average, then don't do what average people are doing. Don't follow the masses. Do the opposite. And there's so many ways of celebrating Christmas without getting into debt. And guys, if you also, and again, Dr. Jones did not pay me for this, and he was not aware I was going to do this. But if you're looking for some really good, useful Christmas gifting ideas, check out SteveGJones.com. He's got everything in there for audios on health, to wealth, to self-esteem. There are probably young ladies in your lives that need a self-esteem boost, an audio. These audios are very inexpensive. They range around the $20 to $30 to $40 range, so they're very inexpensive, but they can last a lifetime. Could you imagine improving somebody's self-esteem? You can't put a price on that. So if you go to SteveGJones.com, it's the largest library that I'm aware of with audios on everything from health to wealth to self-esteem to you name it, memory enhancement. Just go there and you can find out some great, you can get some great gifts for some of your friends and family. I think we've gotten everything we needed to get into this segment, Dr. Steve. We're out of time.
Okay, I like it, and hopefully we've reached out and offered some hope and help for the holidays.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Anytime. Thank you, Bert.
You bet. Guys, great stuff there about living within your means, not getting overstressed. Do not give in to the holiday overwhelm syndrome. You can control it. Check out my friend, Dr. Steve G. Jones at SteveGJones.com. Get yourself whatever it is you need, health, self-esteem, enhance your memory. Let me tell you, I use some of these audios, and I wholeheartedly believe in them. We're going to take a quick commercial break.